doing today, bud?
Not bud.
Yeah, bud, what's up? Buddy old pal.
I'm doing okay. How are you?
It's going.
It's Tuesday.
It's Tuesday again. I can't believe it. And, I remember last time we were chatting, it was the end of the semester, and I didn't even get it in between.
Summer classes all over.
So I got 2 starting this week and then another 2 next week. Do I need those concentrations or? But
it will go by fast.
It will. It's going fast. How's everything with you though? You're on your way out of here. Yeah. I heard from a bird.
That comes with its own stress of trying to navigate what's next, and there's some, I guess, mixed emotions in navigating, I guess, finishing this chapter and preparing for what's next.
It's gonna come with a lot of good big ideas on the other side, and
I'm hoping so.
Matter of fact, one really amazing big idea from the last week.
Fill me in.
Re-commerce was shown this amazing example of re-commerce. I mean, there's so many iterations, right? But this particular, actually a young person, a 27-year-old out of New York City, I guess reached out to Amazon and actually is reselling their returns. Has a really cool pricing model as well. Beginning of the week, it's something like $15 and $20, and every day it goes down until everything is $1 on Saturdays. And everything gets sold. All these things that you can't exactly sell as new, maybe the packaging's a little beat up. It's such an amazing example of like how creative we can get. We are more mindful of sustainability practices.
It sounds like giving products a second life and kind of optimizing a lot of returns that companies get.
Absolutely.
And there's a whole resell market that's really taking place. And I think this younger generation is more aware of sustainability and how that plays a major role. And, the focus on thrifting has become super popular.
Yes.
And I think it's that idea of finding something that you just may not have found elsewhere, and it makes you feel unique in that sense.
Absolutely.
Like, you can't just find this at Target. Like, this is something that's unique to me. I went through the trouble of going through hours of product to make sure I got this one piece.
But it's funny because actually, to your point, one thing that I've seen in thrifting a lot, there's actually, I wouldn't call her a friend necessarily, but she's in my circles. And she, first of all, I've never seen her wear the same thing twice, shoes included. Never in my life. And what she does is, she, does that. She curates thrifted clothing. And I kind of like that idea because for a person like me, like, I'm not digging in those bins all day. I'm not. I don't care how unique it is. So I like the idea of people kind of having an extension of curation be that, and it saves a lot of time. But what I will say with the re-commerce aspect, one thing that does differ from the thrifting part is that typically in re-commerce, you can actually find like various sizes and various colors. I think that's one way that it does depart from the thrifting. I do agree that with the thrifting, like the connection I see most clear, I think, between thrifting and the re-commerce, it's an accessibility thing because you'd be finding, like, there's designer in the bins. And I feel like with re-commerce, it's kind of the same thing because they are sold cheaper because they can't be sold at full price. I feel like people find things, at least in this particular instance with this young man in New York, things that they might not be able to afford otherwise, or products that maybe they wouldn't gravitate towards because it might not be a necessity per se, but at an unbeatable price, it becomes more palatable,
It's also interesting how this has become like a separate business model on its own because it just requires more work and resources from these companies to actually organize, fix up these products within their own business model.
Yes.
So then there's basically a separate business model for other companies to take on all these products basically and resell them. And then it's also been popular with the like influencers to have the mystery boxes that you can kind of just purchase, let's say $150 for this box, and you get over maybe like $300 worth of products and stuff. To me, it could be a little, mixed with junk because you don't really know what you're getting in that sense, but you're taking a chance.
It's kind of giving what's that show? Storage Wars.
Oh yes, yes,
Remember
yes, yes,
that?
yeah.
Where it's kind of like, listen, here's a whole bunch of.
And then also like luggages that it's like lost
Oh,
luggages that you
yes.
can kind of claim,
That's
and
a
then you
great
don't
point.
know what you're getting
Yeah.
either.
But also, I mean, I don't know if I'd be able to do that and sleep at night because it's like if I lost my bag, I want it to come home to me. I know that Madewell is a jeans brand. They have this really interesting model where if you trade in a pair of old jeans, by the way, they're made fantastically. So by the time they're at the end of their life, I mean, it's
You've had them for a while.
you've had them for a while, or you wear them well, and what they do is you trade in your jeans. Um, they give you a $10 credit towards your next pair, which is a nice incentive. And then I believe they maybe repair them. That part I'm not sure about. But I know that they have a very unique partnership where if the jeans are so beat up they cannot use them anymore, they end up like turning them to fibers. Essentially they deconstruct them, and they partnered with Habitat for Humanity to use that as insulation in their builds.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. So you're talking about, kind of the second life. I think this is why re-commerce is so valuable, because it's actually taking into consideration the life cycle of products, not just giving them new life, but also accounting for the end of life in that particular case. And then I think of like Apple, like with their turn-it-in programs, and getting like a credit towards or a percentage off depending on whatever the promotion is. And then, of course, they take those phones and they refurbish them, and that's what you get when you break your phone and you call the insurance, and that's what they send you. E-commerce kind of
And
operates.
also kind of like what you were talking about before about like the curation and stuff. People are willing to pay for these products that are being resold because there's a value being added to it. In the supply chain, we always talk about value being added. You could go to Costco and buy in bulk, but that's not always convenient for everybody. Right. So sometimes people are like, oh, let me go to the grocery store. You get that assortment and that smaller quantity, and that's the value that you're getting from purchasing in a grocery store. So then even when you're purchasing things that may not have been anything changed to them, it's that specific item that you weren't able to find at your local thrift store that you're like, oh, yeah, especially when it comes to collections and collectible items, people are willing to spend that money for those type of things. Point. And people are really making a business with that reselling type of component on eBay and other kind of sites like that, which is pretty cool.
Which is a good point, because eBay, I mean, how long has eBay been around? But I think the unique thing about this, I wish I could remember the name of his store, but I think the unique thing about this fellow in New York is that it's a storefront. Mm-hmm. I don't know. For me,
I feel like it's a yard sale in a store.
It kind of is, though. Yeah. It kind of is,
you don't know what you're looking for. You end up buying more stuff than what you plan to, just because. Yeah. And also the deal aspect to it of like $15 on the first day. People are so willing to spend more on the first day because of the fear of missing out. They're like, oh, if I wait till the day that it's the cheapest, I may be left with the scraps. Everybody already got a hold of the good stuff. Absolutely. So then it's like people are more willing to even, spend more money because it's like, I want to get the good stuff before everybody else gets to it.
And actually, you remind me that their promotional kind of infrastructure, I'll say, kind of reminds me of like Goodwill, how they have like different days, like different deals, and like you gotta.
And then especially by category too, like it could be like apparel one day and then like maybe shoes the next day. So it kind of goes hand in hand with that.
Absolutely. I was reading up on a bit of the process of this circular economic model, and it's quite fascinating because it really depends on the industry, but for the most part the process includes grading, which is kind of like figuring out like, okay, can we repurpose this? If it's quality one, it gets repackaged, usually in better packaging, because you gotta like I said, add value. And it gets added back to stock. Like in the case of vintage resellers, you have this valuable clothing. In some cases it's couture. So you're not going to get rid of that as quickly as you may, a Gap sweater or whatever. So it goes back into the stock. Then they have quality too, which is sold in apparel's case, you get sold to partners like TJ Maxx, Ross, Marshalls, which is another opportunity for people to kind of get their hands on things they might not be able to go and get directly from retailers.
At a better price.
At a way better price. And which sometimes you can afford to get more because, you might as well go for it. And then the recycling, upcycling, and downcycling, which, recycling speaks for itself. But I was tickled to find that they actually make polyester pellets. Like they've figured out what to do with this synthetic garments. Thank you very much. So these synthetic textiles, even they are getting a second life. But I love to see that there's been an active effort. Like this young gentleman in New York, Ayad Amin, he's a genius for that.
eBay started in 95, September of 95.
You said what?
eBay started in September of 95, because you mentioned
Wow.
So just in case you need to go back to it.
Okay, so eBay, 1995. It's not a new idea. But I think there's a new life being breathed
but it's
into
also
re-commerce.
it's not a new idea, but it's just the mass that it's being done. It's not just a few products anymore. It's like all this extra inventory that these companies have nothing else to do with. They're like, okay, here, take it.
Yeah.
Basically.
And my thing is there have been times where I'm in the store and I'm like, hey, this got a little scuff on it. Hook a girl up. Usually that's the problem that you're having. There's a little something going on, but it's like a perfectly fine, usable item. So
actually, I got this for $250 because
you're Fake Stanley. Oh, is it your time for Fake Stanley?
Well, there's a little scuff on it, and I was like, so do I get a discount from $5 to $250?
You know what I'm saying? And if it's if we talk like a food processor, a blender,
things that have a higher cost, people are not going to be willing to, pay the full price for it. But all of this reminds me of our business model that we did together.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So for one of our classes relating to entrepreneurship, we actually were in a group together, and the whole goal was to create a company that the main focus is sustainability.
Yeah.
So this all kind of reminds me.
And it did have to be circular, by the way.
Yes. So it's kind of taking compost and selling that compost and just creating different ways to sell what we produce from things that we're just going to go to the garbage anyways.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of really interesting to see sustainability.
Food scraps. Basically, we was picking up money all day. We're taking the food out. We're bringing the dirt in. So in Yamin Aid's store, I noticed that there were certain things that were in just blank boxes. So I think he probably has a process for that. So the refurbishment process. And then the disposition part of the process, which is figuring out where the item's actually going to go. Back to stock, or if it's going to get processed and broken down into, something else. I'm still not over the polyester pellets. I love that because I don't know how recent this technology is, but I mean, again, I remember not that long ago it being a real problem because those clothes don't degrade. It's basically like plastic.
Especially jeans and those type of materials.
And not for nothing, I don't know if you're aware of this, but a lot of brands dump their clothes in the desert.
But I
so
think
many
that
people
also
in need,
plays into the fast fashion role, in that things are constantly being put out in a period of more than what people are actually purchasing.
Yes.
So then there's also all these leftovers of clothing that doesn't get put to use.
Yeah.
So I think this component is giving these clothes, these products in general, a second life in a way that's more business ran than consumers. Because thrifting is more I'm an individual consumer that just happened to purchase this stuff that doesn't fit me, doesn't serve me anymore, and you know, I'm just donating it to the thrift store. But when it's re-commerce in this aspect, it's more of a B2B type of thing, and then
Certainly can
B2B
be.
to, I guess, to C, you know, because then it's at the end of
Back
you
to
know,
B.
Yeah.
Back to C, you know? I think a lot of businesses can take this this notion and kind of put their spin on it.
And then it also adds a business model that other companies can enter the market with. So the ones that don't want to deal with all this extra kind of work that comes with reselling, it becomes like an open door for other places.
They're like, come get this
Yeah.
off my hands. And not for nothing, we talk about Patagonia every once in a while. I mean, that's also a great example because they have their recycling program, and a lot of the coats that end up in there are not even in super bad shape.
And they also have, just like you were talking about the other company, they have where you can either like bring in things to get fixed up, or they also have like their own collection of things that have been made from, I guess, materials that.
That's right.
Yeah.
The repurposing. No, because listen, one thing I love in this life is good fabric. I do. No, seriously. People don't have this love of fabric that I do, but they sure hate bad fabric. Like, you know,
Yeah.
it's like audio. It's like you don't notice good sound. You're not supposed to, but you know, like, bad audio.
You're like, I didn't
sounds
know
like-
good until I
You're
knew
like,
bad.
Damn, okay, so
in any case, let's talk about what firms can do to make this transition. Like, first of all, the curation aspect. I feel like that breathes a new life into anything. Just kind of like contextualizing it or juxtaposing it against, you know, whatever other collections that you have. Like, if they took all the old iPods and put them out, like, I would get them. I don't know. This is just like an idea.
I'm also thinking, like, back to your question of what you were starting, like what firms can do. I'm also thinking about how technology and the advancements of AI will help to minimize kind of the return policy later on. So if you think about if customers know in the beginning exactly what they're getting, then that can help to kind of limit returns later on when they do finally make that purchase. So like, you know how AI is kind of changing the game when it comes to online shopping. If you know like, oh, this lipstick is more, you know, looks well with my color complexion, or the shirt is fitting more to what my body type is, like all those components, you're more sure of your purchase. And then when you do finally make that purchase, you're more confident, and then you're more satisfied, leading to less returns, and then maybe leading to less of this resell component of all these products being extra inventory.
I mean, and see, this just goes back to a bigger. Oh, my bad.
Not footsies.
Whoopsie. It goes back to this like overarching thing, right? I'm gonna bring up Yamin Aid again. Shopping locally. If you're physically in the store, the odds of return falls dramatically. That's number one. And number two, I feel like that's what not number two, but just saying, I feel like that's what Yamin Aid has.
I think there's
come.
also no return policy for a model like that. It's
Well,
like,
definitely.
you
Well,
know.
definitely. As is for sure. But I think that's the cool thing about it. Because you're not only having access to products that you may not afford or look at because you're not going to buying it new.
And you're more confident because you're seeing it.
You're more confident because you're seeing it.
And also, sorry to cut you off.
No,
But
go
it also, I remember seeing that they allow you to see if it works.
Absolutely.
In there.
Absolutely.
So then it makes you confident, like, okay,
Absolutely.
I'm willing to purchase it. Not just because it's a good price, but because I know it works and I like the way it functions.
Yup.
So then you're confident, like, okay, I'm not being scammed.
Right. And you might even feel like that a little bit, but I mean, that's fine. For $15, espresso machine, like, please, okay? I think we're going to be fine. What I'll say I want to see more of is supply chain transparency. I think this is also going to feed into this model being sustainable long term. Because you know what? Eventually, I think everyone's going to want to get in on this re-commerce thing. It's so much, the scope is, the breadth of it is so much wider than just reselling. There's a whole...
And there's different reasons why people go after these products, either to resell themselves or, you know, like you were saying, to get things at a cheaper deal. And sometimes it's reselling with the idea of, targeting a specific audience. Like, oh, there's somebody looking for this exact, collectible shirt.
Absolutely.
Things like.
And not for nothing, I might have to go get a mystery box before the year's over.
You're like, what do I do with all of this stuff in this box here? You're like, Christmas gifts?
It's like 40 pairs of pantyhose that don't fit me. Just like
half of them with holes.
moth eaten. Okay, like forget about it.
But I think this was a really interesting topic to see kind of where I think overall online shopping is going to be heading, and kind of this new market of what do we do with this inventory that came back to us that we weren't exactly expecting for. But it's also businesses they account for returns in part of their finances of making like, okay, we're going to get a portion of this return back to us, and it's easier to cut costs by not really implementing it back into our inventory that we currently have. But then also, like, I feel like for me as a personal shopper, I don't online shop often, but it's also the idea that, like, not everybody's on Amazon's level when it comes to 2-day shipping. So sometimes that plays a role into why there are returns. It could not be the product itself. It could be the timing of it. By the time I got it, I no longer needed it. I needed it for this specific occasion, this specific event. And when it came, the event passed, like the need already was fulfilled. So I think
can't tell you how many
sometimes,
times that's happened to me.
and with Amazon being the leader in shipping, everything is compared to that 2-day type of limit.
I really am curious to see how this model proliferates over the next few years, because I also do think that it's abstractly related to COVID. Since we were inside so much, we couldn't like touch and feel things. We had, everything coming to the house, and I don't know. So I feel like we're still kind of getting out of that, those times, until we're like 5 years, until it's like 2025, I feel like we're still going to have that leftover mindset. But that being said, when we start to kind of move out of that space, finally, I'm curious to see how re-commerce is going to remain innovative, because will it be enough to just resell things that people return? Because I feel like for at least Yamin Aid, the promotional structure is the thing too. It's not just returned items or slightly used items. It's it's kind of gamified. And
Definitely.
he totally he found like the sweet spot of re-commerce.
And I think it's really the fear of missing out that kind of plays into like, I need to get it while I can, because I don't know when the next opportunity will be. It's also interesting to see how we've seen it with apparel of, high-end brands kind of be pushed down the ladder of, it didn't sell in this season. And now, TJ Maxx or Marshalls is selling it. So you're getting it at a cheaper price. And how does that play with the brand and kind of its association? So I wonder how that will further be implemented with re-commerce as a growing kind of business model, and how that will affect brands with a higher, association of kind of pricing when it's being resold at a cheaper price.
Yeah. I mean, I remember when Michael Kors started popping up in Marshalls. You remember that? I'm like, okay.
And then if you see it there, it's kind of like it loses its value, even if it is not in season per se.
But see, I feel like dilutes in some cases, but in others, it's like a strategy against that. And it's just kind of like, I don't think I have that part quite figured out.
I guess we have to talk about it again next episode.
Yeah, facts. If you'd like to check out more episodes of The Human Side of Business, follow us at Montclair_Feliciano.
If you want to watch more episodes of The Human Side of Business, you can follow us at Montclair_Feliciano.